looking for an investor center?
Is that you want to invest?
No, investor center. I'm looking for investor center.
Yeah, that's us. Hey. Oh, this is it. This is it.
Oh,
I'm Dwayne.
you're Dwayne.
Yeah.
Hi, Dwayne. We spoke on the phone. So, where are your Quotrons here?
Cotrons?
Yeah, computers.
No, we don't even need computers here. We just trade right off the pink sheets here.
Pink sheets?
Yeah, they're penny stocks. You know, companies that can't get listed on NASDAQ, they don't have enough capital, their shares trade here.
Penny stocks?
Yeah, this one, Aerotyne, is a really interesting, Aerotyne.
Aerotyne, yeah. 6 cents a share? Come on. Who buys this crap?
Well, I mean, honestly, mostly schmucks. Postmen, there's always postmen.
Right.
Plumbers, they see our ads in the back of Hustler and Popular Mechanics, and our ads actually say they can get rich quick.
Is this stuff regulated, or are you guys, what are you doing here?
Sort of.
Sort of? Jesus Christ, the spread on these is huge.
Yeah, and that's the point. What's your name again?
Mine, Jordan Belfort.
Jordan, what do you get on a blue chip stock?
I make 1%. I did make 1%.
Pink sheets, it's 50.
It's 50%? 50% commission?
Yep.
For what?
It's our markup for our services.
So if I sell a stock at $10,000, my commission is $5,000.
If you sell $10,000 worth of this stock, I will personally give you a blowjob for free.
Hey, I'm Kyle. Thanks for joining me and Andy for the Legendary Creature Podcast. So, if you're listening with your kids or your conservative grandma, maybe don't, because we swear.
Or you can check us out on YouTube, because hey, that's no place for conservative old women or children.
Fuck yeah.
Tokens.
Tokens, dude.
Tokens. Talking about tokens.
This is my bag.
This is your... Fuck yeah. This is absolutely your goddamn bag. And even just when I think it's dealt with, it comes back.
Yeah, I can't help myself.
It's like a bad case of
This one?
unsleeved cardboard chlamydia. Just when you think you can, take a leak and not have it.
You get a big flare up.
You get a oh god, it's not going. It's not going, and now I gotta go. Not that I've experienced that.
This and Life Gain, those two things I can't seem to pull myself away from. I just can't help it.
I was looking at Karlov last night again. I was like, what was my thought? Why didn't I pursue that? And I'm like, it's because it's his sphere. I don't really want to occupy that space, the Life Gain space.
You and I talked about that deck a lot, and I was just like, do it.
Yeah, because you kind of want to vicariously experience it.
Yeah,
through me.
so this last weekend we had 2 Orzhov decks sitting at the table in one game.
And you were not bothered by that at all.
I was pretty happy, Andy.
They really jive on each other.
Pretty happy.
They're almost like Dimir decks. 2 mill decks.
Oh, yeah.
That's what I meant. 2 mill. I say Dimir and I meant mill, but you know what I fucking
one and the
mean
same
when I say mill. But yeah, they definitely hum when they're together.
Yeah, we've had that where I've played Fenax and Jeff has played Lazav.
It's who's going to get the Erebus. Who gets Erebus first? Who gets Blood Artist first?
Right.
So we're back to doing a deck tech and a theme, and yeah, we
haven't visited themes in a little while. I'm actually surprised we didn't visit this one. I'm super into tokens, and we're nearly 90 episodes into this podcast.
And we haven't talked about
and we haven't addressed the overarching theme of tokens. We talked tokens, certainly, with some of the deck techs we've done, but
yeah,
we haven't talked about the theme.
Okay. Yeah, let's explore it together, man.
Let's dive in.
Teach me how to token, Kyle. Tell me about the waters on your home world, Kyle.
The waters on my home world.
Yeah.
Yeah, my home world is definitely not a desert. It's for sure. There's a bounteous life on this one. So I kind of wanted to build an analogy for how to talk about tokens. And I think the best way that I can try to translate how to use them in Commander and in Magic the Gathering is to just treat tokens like money.
Yeah, I really like that because you sent me the document for this idea of yours, and this is pretty good analog for what tokens are.
Yeah. Yeah, because I think like if you invest well, then you'll be wealthy and likely victorious. And if not, you can call that guy from BitConnect and
BitConnect.
talk to him
What am I
about
gonna do?
about how you lost all your money. You
So
know?
we need to play that clip every time we talk about a board wipe with token. If you're doing a token show, what am I gonna do?
Oh man, BitConnect. Anyway, so let's kind of like walk through what I think are the important aspects of tokening and kind of relate this back to managing your money because they are that. So I think the first thing with the commander deck when you're doing tokens is you need to start somewhere. So this is kind of like your deposits. You got to get that.
This is your acorn.
Earn that first dollar. Yeah, plant that acorn.
Plant that acorn.
So basically get your first tokens, right? And so that can come in a variety of ways. We talk about this quite a bit on the podcast, how like if there's permanents that allow you to do something on a recurring basis, that's typically more ideal than an instant or sorcery that does it once, although there's certainly other options. So we would be looking at activations. Outside of activations that multiply our tokens, but ones that actually just produce tokens, we would be looking at cards like Heliod or Oketra, where you're paying mana to produce a token, or something like a Retrofitter Foundry, that's some combination of mana and tapping, or even something like Daxos the Returned, that would, you're paying a cost to get
to just produce them. So a permanent that continually you invest your mana, and you get a token.
Yeah, exactly. So you're basically just buying your first tokens, right? Like putting that first dollar into it. There, of course, are triggers that allow you to produce tokens. So this might be enter the battlefield triggers, leave the battlefield triggers, attack triggers, things like that. And so like a common one that we see in Commander would be Avenger of Zendikar, right? Like enters the battlefield, you get 0/1 plants equal to the number of lands you have. Another really good one is the Dragon Lair Spider. So whenever an opponent casts a spell,
you get a spider.
You get an insect.
Oh yeah, it doesn't make you spiders. It makes you insects.
Yeah, you get insects with
that. Don't have reach. Okay.
Something like the Beetleback Chief, where it's an ETB, you get a couple goblins.
Yeah, so its cost to power ratio is.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Yeah, it's really in line with like the Siege Gang Commander and okay.
Exactly. Hero of Bladehold is another really awesome one, where you go into the red line and you pull in two new tokens, and it's usually one
Hero of Bladehold is a really good aggro card.
It is a super good aggro card and a super good way, because I think that one just accomplishes a lot of things that you want to do with tokens. It produces the tokens and it beefs them up, right? There's other ones that are not so fruitful in terms of triggers. So an example of this would be like Gyrus, the Waker of Corpses.
Oh, by fruitful you mean fucking terrible.
Yeah, like it's not fruitful at all.
Yeah.
So like not all activations and triggers are created equally, of course. I think another one that's an example, like a card that shows up in Commander quite a bit, is the Hammer of Perforos, but it's there to provide haste. The other side of it, where you sack a land to create a Golem token, might be a.
I've never been. Wait, I take it back. I've been in a situation with Perforos as my commander, and after like a board wipe or two, I'm like, well, I gotta jam that last damage in. Like, here we go, and it just starts smashing lands to make the golem.
See, and that like
to get his trigger up.
That's
there.
not to say with something like the Hammer of Perforos that there's not situations you would use it, because like I said, that other side's useful, and maybe you do use that to produce tokens, but that's not one I'd be planning to use. Like, you know what? I'm just going to get some lands set up, cast a Hammer of Perforos, and nuke those lands for tokens and call it a day.
In mono red, I don't know how much of that land equates to damage. I mean, after three of them, you've got 9 damage on board again. Like, I'm back in the game, pal.
That's a good point.
I'm back in, baby.
Another aspect for creating tokens is spells. Like I said, sometimes, like I don't know.
That's like the first thing I think of.
Yeah, probably for you because you play goblins with tokens more than
like
anything else I've seen you do.
Command and dragon fodder, but more of just kind of back to our roots with Lingering Souls. Like,
Oh, yeah.
fucking card. Oh my god.
Yeah, there's some really good ones for producing tokens. And so I think there's two things, is like making sure that they're effective in their cost range, right?
Mhm.
So like Krenko's command, I think you get 2/1/1s for 2. Is that right?
Yeah, it's 2 for 2, and dragon fodder is functionally the same thing.
Yeah, functionally the same thing.
But I see where you're going with that, because if you go to the I think what is it? It's one that gives you 4. It's not that great.
Yeah.
It's like 5 mana to get 4.
Yeah.
For some reason, that one's never
Some of them don't
been attractive.
Some
to
of
me.
them don't scale that well. Another thing to take into consideration is where they fit in line with your commander. So like Krenko's command is awesome in Krenko
Oh yeah.
because you're setting up tokens before Krenko comes out, and then Krenko's got assets in order
he's
to
popping
multiply.
off. Yeah.
But then like another example of this would be where this would be bad would be, I think it's called the Horncaller's Chant. And so, I mean, this is sort of like an extreme example, but it's 7 and a green for a sorcery, and it puts out a 4/4 green rhino creature token with trample onto the battlefield, and then you populate. So if you have nothing else, you at least get 2 4/4s for 8. And that's sort
So
of
it's 8 for 8.
Yeah, it's 8 for 8. It's kind of like that feels like it's at cost, but let's say we put that into our Reese the Redeemed deck. Well, you just spent 8 mana when you probably want to be able to just sink your mana into Reese's bigger activated ability of doubling tokens, right?
So you got to really think about how you invest in tokens.
Exactly. So like, you know, right, exactly. So like if you're
Like breaking even might not be good enough sometimes. Like an 8 for 8.
exactly.
There's context.
Exactly.
It's
There is
complex.
context that matters very much. Like,
Because 2 for 2 in Krenko, that's a pretty good deal.
yeah, like you probably, like, I guess
Because you're
maybe
investing in Krenko's activated ability.
right. And I guess if we're looking at this in terms of, if we're trying to go with this money analogy, it's one thing to go deposit your check at the bank. It's another thing to go cash it at the, you know, like the money lender, whatever, like payday loan place.
Check and go plays.
Yeah, like it. That to me, like doing something like the Horncaller's Chant and Reese, like that's kind of like going to the payday loan place to cash your check, because it's just going to be blown out the window immediately. You know, like it's not helping you progress. Whereas depositing it with a Krenko's command predating Krenko, that's going to help you. It's going to move you in the right direction,
Sure.
right? But when we're talking tokens, I think it always invariably comes around to the best thing that we need to do is we want to have aggressive investments. And to me, this would be our multipliers.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so go push that into a stock portfolio and be aggressive with it, right? Krenko, of course, is probably, to me, the best example. All you need to do is just tap that guy,
And yeah, you double your goblin load.
double your goblin load.
Would you say that he's a token commander in that he synergizes with, like, because he doesn't synergize, like Reese is a token commander.
Yeah,
to me.
Reese is
He has
specific to
in-
tokens.
Yeah,
Krenko is specific to goblins,
but he makes tokens.
but he makes tokens. I think it's hard to,
I think the distinction's not that clear.
I think it's
clear
hard
enough
to
even
divorce
mention
the
between
two.
the two. Yeah,
because oftentimes when you're doing tokens, you're going to end up in some kind of tribal domain as well, right? Like Reese the Redeemed, while you can do any tokens, it functions pretty well with elves.
right. Same with Izuri. Like he
Yeah.
doesn't. He just wants elf tokens.
Right. There's a lot of stuff that fit into doing a zombie tribal that has zombie tokens going along with it. Vampire tokens kind of go along with the tribe as well. Invariably, if you're working in a tribe, you're probably going to be working with some of their tokens as well.
At the same time,
And so they're not entirely divorced, I don't think, but I don't know. What do you think?
I think you're right. I think they're married, these type of cards, but they're not. Like I don't know. I guess what am I trying to say? Like Tristani to me is a token commander because it's in her verbiage. There's no other
she's
direction.
going to populate. Like
She wants tokens to work with.
Yeah.
Reese wants tokens to work with.
Right.
Krenko gives you tokens, but then the tokens he wants tokens to work with. Like, who are we fucking kidding? Like,
I mean,
that's the
setup
quickest
for-
way to get him set up.
The setup for Krenko is pretty easy, right? Because you have that flexibility.
Yeah.
You can cast the best goblin creature cards and the best goblin token spells,
Like you can't lose.
and it all
you just
it all
can't-
works for him,
You can't lose with him.
right? But then you, in addition to, Teysa Karloff, I would say is another multiplier, right? So
And she cares about tokens, doesn't she?
she does care about tokens, but then also if you are piling that deck full of creatures that when they die they produce tokens, instead of just producing one token, they produce double. So I think Teysa Karloff is kind
and
of
she gives them lifelink.
Yeah.
And vigilance.
Yeah. And so she's giving a lot that you want with those. Parallel Lives, Anointed Procession, Doubling Season, Primal Vigor, all of those are really standard with tokens as our multipliers, right? You might also have some spells to consider with those, like Deploy to the Front.
What's that one do again?
Now let me pull it up and read it off. So Deploy to the Front is 5 and 2 white, and it says put X 1/1 white soldier creature tokens onto the battlefield, where X is the number of creatures on the battlefield.
God.
So Parallel Lives or Anointed Procession, Doubling Season, those things are things that you set up kind of in advance of getting your tokens.
It's for something
right?
like this, where it's going to really spike up.
Yeah, then you're functionally like tripling, right?
Sure.
But something like Deploy to the Front requires the setup predating it, right? So you need to have your tokens and creatures in place, and then you cast something like Deploy to the Front. Devout Invocation, where you can tap down all of your, I think it's tap down if I recall.
Yeah, it has
It's kind of like
the what's that? What's that ability called again? It's on
it's a Selesnya one.
the
Convoke.
Convoke. There we go. I was going to say concordant for some reason.
I don't know if they have I don't know if they have the mechanic Convoke on it, but it's functionally that. So it's tap any number of untapped creatures you control, put a 4/4 white angel creature token with flying onto the battlefield for each creature tapped this way.
So they don't reduce the cost. They
it
just
doesn't reduce the
magnify
cost, but it
effect.
just so it's not quite.
So the more you have, the more you
Convoke.
get, kind of thing.
Yeah. Clone Legion, another type thing that would I mean, Clone Legion doesn't necessarily have to be with tokens, but it's something that you can kind of do.
God, tokens are pretty proliferate. They're in
as a
almost every
multiplier.
color.
Yeah, they really are. You can
There's zombies in black, elves in green. Like there's golems, and they come from artifacts. There's good almost
golems, mirrors, servos,
Yes.
thopters.
Yeah, there's a ton.
Yeah, there's a lot you can do. So these multipliers, I kind of like to think of it as like you need to channel your inner Warren Buffett. Like take that first million that you earned and go double it. Take whatever you earned, those first few tokens, double those tokens. Like that's something that's integral to a token strategy, I think. Not necessarily integral, but it's going to pour a little gasoline on.
Well, how
that
about
fire.
this? How about this? Like just to be the guy wearing the black hat, right? Like everybody's probably already doing these when they think tokens.
Oh yeah.
So tell me about the Kyle philosophy of tokens then, because I feel like everybody knows like Parallel Lives.
Those are all that's all true.
Anointed Procession.
So let's dive into. I've got 2 more principles with tokens that I think maybe can add some depth to that, because you're right. Everybody's probably doing that. Everybody's probably, I mean, not probably, they are. They're creating tokens. They're doubling the number of tokens they have. You're exactly right. So I like to kind of think of it as there's one side of it is we want to enhance our investments. So now that we've got tokens, what are they doing for me in terms of
besides attacking?
Well, yeah, but
Or
even
blocking, I
with
guess.
their attacking, like how can I make their attack better? And this is something that I think is still used quite a bit. But maybe kind of drops off a little bit after those first 2 pieces, right?
Okay.
And so some aspects of this would be increasing their size. So Beastmaster Ascension is one we see all the time, right? Anthem effects with lords. So we just talked about how oftentimes you're going to be married with some kind of tribal thing. If you're sitting in green, you're probably going to see things like Pathbreaker Ibex or Craterhoof Behemoth.
So increasing their power.
We want to make the impact on that combat bigger. I think something that's been introduced this year, and maybe there's other instances, maybe you can correct me, but something that I think has been unique this past year is Brutaclad, where we are changing the face of these tokens.
He's fairly unique.
I couldn't think of anything that did something like that where it changed
What they are. Yeah, like Xenograph just changes their typing.
Sure.
Like things like that don't really change what they actually are.
Yeah, there's that
in that their power toughness changes, their tribe changes, their creature type. I mean,
yeah.
Even shifting them from creatures to treasure tokens, like he can shift them away to make them harder to reach for traditional board wipes. Like Brutaclad is pretty tricky. He's a slick guy.
He's very interesting. The only thing that I can think that might be even somewhat related is White has that new enchantment, Divine Visitation.
What does that do again?
So it's 3 and 2 white. If one or more creature tokens would be created under your control, that many 4/4 white angel creature tokens with vigilance are created instead. So it's not quite the same.
Yeah.
But
there's also, what is that green card that just says all of them are clones of this green card, the 6/6.
Yeah.
It's like Spirit of the Forest or something like that.
Well, that's
it's
a
from
good point.
Innistrad. But I don't know. I still think that Brutaclad specifically for tokens and that it's happening at your combat.
There's a few other things that you can use to do something similar to this in terms of size. You could use the Gigantomancer, where you just pay 1 to turn something into like a 7/7.
Yeah.
You could use the Mirror Entity to kind of apply this principle. But these are really niche things that I don't know if we're all necessarily looking for, because the most effective tokens, the most cost efficient tokens to get out are 1/1s.
Are the best.
And then if you can use other abilities like Brutaclad, or like maybe you've got that Divine Visitation set up, or you use a Mirror Entity or something like that,
or something later,
to throttle them up. I think that's something that might be a missed opportunity that we should be looking for when we're building around tokens. And just giving them additional abilities, I think, is an important piece. So specifically, like things like Amara Tandris. I mean, people do these. I'm not saying it's unique to me. I'll dive into what I think is where we might really miss out on tokens if we're not careful in how we're building in a second here. But Amara Tandris, making it so that our tokens can't take damage. So if we're working in Selesnya, like, yeah, she's kind of an expensive card to get out on the battlefield. Eldrazi Monument, Akroma's Memorial. I think something like Elspeth's Sun Champion, if you can get her emblem.
Oh yeah.
Things like that really help out, like to where you're pushing your tokens from just being these bodies to where they have a lot more value to you.
Yeah, they go from just 1/1 nobodies to pretty glorified when it comes to Akruma's Memorial and stuff like that.
Yeah, and something like Eldrazi Monument like makes it so like, man, people aren't going to get through to you, and the cost to you to keep your Eldrazi Monument around is minimal, because you're
canceled out completely because you have an engine that's coming online. Like
exactly.
You have like a From Beyond or something that's just giving you something to eat every turn to keep this value permanent in play.
Exactly. So there's plenty of things to kind of I think to throttle them up. It's easy to get carried away with not doing that, and sometimes it's easy to just rely on that. And so an example I have that kind of came to my mind when I was kind of thinking about this, when we're trying to enhance our investments in tokens.
Is Obelisk of Erd.
Sure.
The card's not that good, man. I've ran it. Like, it's just, he just gives them a flat 2/2.
Yeah.
I would just say, we'll just get the Elvish Norn out here, like the ultimate lord, I guess.
Let's do that. So I guess I want to preface this next principle with a game we had a few weeks ago.
All right.
So you were playing Kranko.
Hell yeah.
Chris was playing his Mirren Rats deck.
Fuck no.
I mean, you won this game.
Barely. But he got in my way.
He got in your way very badly.
Yes, he did.
He was able to recur his Spore Frog, right?
Over, and I could not find Impact Tremors or any of that. I had more goblins than I've ever had.
Yeah, like I think you were in the ballpark of like 1,000 goblins by the time we just kind of
not
like
even a joke.
Called it. Like, no, that is literally not
I
a
had
joke.
2 dead opponents. It was on a 1v1 that started coalescing.
Yeah, like because you were able to take the rest of us out with combat damage.
Yeah.
And this is my point, is I think
Couldn't even find my Goblin Bombardment. Like I could not find any of these pieces to just shove him out of the game.
And that's just it, right? Like, because I think, especially if you're functioning in Selesnya with tokens,
Yeah.
I think there's this over dependence on combat with tokens, right?
Oh yeah. They just don't have a lot of. They can't put them to work in any other way.
Because of that, I think there comes a mentality with tokens that they're about combat, and there's a missing out on using them. And if I'm being honest, like combat is the high risk way to use tokens, right? Like if you get a bunch of tokens set up,
Mhm.
there's no debate about whether or not your opponents should cast a board wipe if they've got one in hand.
Yeah. I mean, they're looking for one. They're scrambling for
They
one.
absolutely must cast it as soon as it's in hand.
Yeah, they will.
Like, so it's it's very high risk. Like if you're running a lot of tokens, the chances of you getting the benefit out of them from combat are lower.
Yeah, I can't. There is not a. Because I think when it comes to board wipes, at least as far as this is just how I am, at least, I think about, can I leverage my board position better? Would leveraging my board position serve me better than casting the board wipe?
Yes.
But when I'm facing a token deck, it almost never, that question's always easily answered with just shoot the fucking board wipe.
Right.
You know, so if Reese is out and I see you have maybe like 5 tokens, I know you're going to 10.
Yeah.
And they're
And
not
God
like,
forbid I cast a Seedborn Muse between now and then and I start doubling out
yeah.
on everybody's turn.
Yeah, so it's almost always just like, I don't care what, I could have a lot of valuable creatures out, you know?
Yeah.
I could have a lot of valuable creatures out that are doing work for me that just aren't going to, they're not.
Yeah, it's not going to outstrip what the tokens are going to do.
They're fired. They're going down with it. Everything. Like, sorry. You know? Sorry, I gotta commit to this purge. There you gotta go.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think you're right. That's kind of one of the existential problems with running tokens.
And it's not necessarily unique with Selesnya. I think it can happen in other instances. Orzhov, I think, is kind of pushing you towards some other things that can do some damage outside of just combat. I think Red provides that, but sometimes
Orzhov Black and Red have a bit of board wipe insurance, you know.
And that's what I'm getting at.
What I mean is not board protection, insurance. So board, like, heroic intervention is it just protects your board.
Oh, sure.
You can call it insurance if you want. Insurance to me is you've lost the asset and you are paid because of it.
Right.
Like Boros Charm and Selfless Spirit and effects like these, they're not really insurance. They're just you dodge the catastrophe.
Right.
You dodge the bullet. You didn't wreck your car.
Right. The tornado wrecked all the streets, all the houses across the street, but didn't touch you.
Yeah, that's what those are. Like your kid's little house fire like got dealt with before anything. You just slap the lighter out of his hand before he caught the carpet on fire.
There's a hole in the carpet, but your house is still
not even that. Like
standing,
everything's fine. You're down a card, right?
Sure.
But insurance to me is, okay, I lost the asset, but I'm paid for it. So something like Vicious Shadows.
Mm-hmm.
If you have a lot of creatures on board and someone dares
is holding
board
their
wipe,
hand,
yeah, or anything, like they're exiting the game. That's your insurance payout.
Exactly.
Blood Artist, insurance payout. Zulaport in Cutthroat. I always say Enforcer, but yeah, Zulaport, Cutthroat, insurance, things like that.
Yeah.
So Black and Red seem to have a lot of those where it's like, yeah, don't break my stuff or you're gonna pay.
Yeah, and I think this is what I like to call like diversitizing your bonds. You know? Like you got to diversify your investment in these tokens, right? And that's the whole point behind that.
To me, those are the best.
Well,
those are the best where you can't lose. It's like, all right,
exactly.
Kill him. I don't give a shit. Fuck, I'll kill him. Goblin Bombardment.
Yeah. So we look at enter the battlefield side of this. If we want to look
Judith just wasn't that good with the stuff, that line of thinking. Like it just had to be non-token because it would have just been such an easy cheese.
Oh, sheesh.
You know, it would have been the best easy cheese, the nacho kind that you can't find anywhere.
So, like damage triggers, there's both sides of the equation that you can play with tokens. You can play the ETB side. So this would be Perforos, which is just utterly jacked, right?
Yeah. He is really jacked. Or impact tremors, same, but
Yeah,
different.
impact tremors, which is half, but still plenty.
Yeah, half, but still plenty. Yeah.
Warstorm Surge will do some work for you. It's a little more costly CMC wise.
Yeah, but you can bounce it off other creatures.
Yeah, exactly. And if you're really fucking crazy, let's bring Pandemonium into the mix.
What's Pandemonium?
Everybody gets this benefit, right?
Oh, it just does it for everybody whenever a creature anywhere enters the battlefield.
So let me pull it up and read it.
Dude, what the hell is this? I've never heard of this card. Yeah, Warstorm Surge is pretty dope.
So Pandemonium, 3 and a red for an enchantment. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield, that creature's controller may have it deal damage equal to its power to target creature or player of his or her choice. It's kind of it's red as fuck. It's crazy, right?
It's like the red vernal bloom, but not even. Because I'm thinking like, yeah, you obviously would be set up to capitalize on that better than anybody, but
You would, but it could backfire.
yeah, because they could throw the 4 damage at your Cranko.
Yeah, if you've got Cranko, they're just
Which is
like, well,
unacceptable.
fuck Cranko.
Yeah, exactly.
But I mean, if there's any place, I mean, there's a bunch of goblins in the art of this thing, so I mean, kind of begging for Cranko.
I mean, I'm dumb enough to try it.
But it throttles things up, right? Like it puts you in a position where you can. I think if you play it timely, like
Mhm.
maybe you've got a situation where you're going to have like a big Cranko activation that's just going to put you towards the finish line. Let's play that Pandemonium and rev it, right?
Yeah.
Then there's the leaving the battlefield side of things. Like you cited several of them. Vicious Shadows is great because, especially if you've got a greedy blue player that's been letting their hand get nice and juicy.
Yeah, anything dies anywhere. You can actually politic your way around that. Like, hey,
Yeah.
block this so I can deal damage to this person. Or hey, let me. Yeah, there's ways to shove it at the person who's drawing too many cards.
One of the ones that I've really liked seeing lately is the Poison Tip Archer.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that one too.
Everybody
Everybody loses life.
exactly.
Well, you're
Along with the vindictive vampire that does that as well. A commander that it exemplifies this super awesomely is Omnath, Locus of Rage.
holy shit, yeah.
Right? So we'll talk about commander selection for this kind of stuff, but Omnath represents something that I think is important where it accomplishes 2 things we want to have happen with tokens. A, it creates them. B, it pays you for something happening to them, right? It gives you the insurance payout when they die.
Right.
Like it's just awful.
Yeah, and its deposit cost is just play lands.
Yeah.
Just play lands. Do what you do.
Yeah, exactly. Play the
Yeah,
game of
Omnath
Magic
is-
and you'll be well set.
Right. Omnath is bonkers when it comes to this, if we're thinking along these lines.
Another one that would be good is Slimefoot.
Yeah, he's actually pretty cool.
So yeah, we're sitting a lot in black and red, a little bit of green mixed in with some of these. But this exists in other things. Like if we want to go with the tribal route, we can see it in Diregraph Captain and the Plague Belcher, where we're protecting our investment in zombies, right?
Well, insuring it.
Insuring it.
Yeah, you'll
Yes.
lose the asset, but
You
you'll
will
get
lose
something
it.
else.
You will lose it, but you're fine with that, right? Like that's the point. To go along with this, like diversitizing our bonds,
Mm-hmm.
sack fodder is the other thing that obviously a lot of people use things like that, especially if they're playing along black lines. They're using tokening for it.
But it's something to answer an edict effect with.
Exactly. And so you mentioned, yeah, you're right. Something to answer edict effects. Like if there's, which our play group, heavy edicts right now, right?
God, edicts are so hot right now.
Like thus tokens are very close to my heart, you know?
That's why Theomancer is like one of my favorite black cards.
Oh yeah,
Because
because it always fills you up, right?
Yeah, she's always replaced like that. That bond is always replaced.
Yeah.
So I can answer an edict with it. I can block, and they're death touch. So you
Yeah.
become a very unattractive
Like I'm just not going to touch you.
target with her.
It's
know?
true.
Yeah.
It's true. And then for your own sack fodder, you know, and I mean, like you, and this oftentimes straddles multiple areas, whether it's mana production with something like Ashnod's Altar or Phyrexian Altar, or like you mentioned, the Goblin Bombardment. Like,
Mhm.
okay, if you're going to board wipe, I'm just going to sack it all
Yeah.
and just and hit you with damage. This is something that you've pressed a lot, I think, in talking about it. Like the idea of having sack outlets in decks in order to deal with.
To cash out.
Yeah, it really
Cash your
is.
chips out, dude. Get out of the fucking casino.
Or to avoid problems. Like, there's nothing worse than an insurrection getting dropped.
Yeah. Yeah, or just any even lower level steal effect. But yeah, insurrection is.
But you might make somebody think twice about casting those thievery type spells if you've got your Goblin Bombardment and you're just going to sack everything off.
Right. The low scale ones like Control Magic and Treachery, like they're not even going to bother if they're
there's
smart.
no reason for them to come your way.
Yeah, you're like, fuck you. You take it away from them.
Insurrection will serve as a
less
board
so,
wipe
I'd be
if
like,
they do that.
Yeah,
but-
you're like, clear me for all the blockers for these other guys. Like the people that don't have them, but it's better than nothing because I'm going to throw them back at you anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, I don't think for me as a token deck builder, that's something that I was always thinking about, especially when I was running in colors like Selesnya. That wasn't necessarily on my mind that why don't I run sack outlets in order to cash out? But why wouldn't you?
Yeah, you're going to lose it anyway.
You're going to lose it. Like,
no, everyone is looking for that board wipe. And the guy that isn't is betting on an insurrection or something like like a reigns of power or whatever they're looking for.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So being ready for that cash out with that kind of stuff is a huge deal. I think the other thing is card draw and
this is why 2 toughness tokens suck.
It's true.
They fucking suck.
They
if there was a zombie commander that
push you over with the skull
made
clamp,
2
right?
ones, yeah, it's like the 2 ones are 1 toughness is it's just better.
But when you're running in green, there's actually a lot of nice options. Like you can do things like Collective Unconscious, Shamanic Revelation that give you card draw based on the number of creatures you have.
Oh yeah.
So those types of things are really good. If you're running Merfolk, like this is sort of embodied in Tishana, Voice of Thunder.
Oh right,
because she ATBs and you draw.
Yeah, she's the go wide Zanega. Zanega.
One that I hadn't really thought about until I was kind of doing a little bit of studying was what's it called? It's called Reprocess, I think.
That's a black card, isn't it?
It's a black card. It's kind of another like, I don't know. You kind of have to decide what the situation's looking like for you. So
is it an instant?
It's a sorcery.
Fuck.
So you can't like
there's
do
no
it in
deciding
response.
if it's an instant.
Yeah, you should definitely put it in your deck for sure if it's an instant because it's the best way to respond to a board wipe.
Let me cash out.
So 2 and 2 black, sacrifice any number of artifacts, creatures, and or lands, draw a card for each permanent sacrifice this way.
God, what one hell of a cash out that one.
Yeah.
God damn.
Yeah, like so if it's just feeling like you're not getting there, or maybe you don't have enough of your engine.
Do you have that in Tesa?
Built up? I actually don't.
Where you're like, you know what? Fuck this board state. I'm reprocessing
Well,
it.
you know what the funny thing is I've been leaning so heavily on Krav for stuff like that. And I'm like, but this is just like
it's a one-off Krav.
It's a one-off Krav.
Yeah,
it's,
a little bit.
It's kind of the emulation of that. And so I'm like, I'm quite into that. Like reprocess is pretty cool. There's some other cool ones like so Huatley.
Yeah.
So the Radiant Champion, she's actually got an emblem that you can get to, I think, with some decent ease, especially if you're tokening. So she's the Selesnya one, so 2 green white. Her first ability is she comes in with 3 loyalty, by the way.
Okay.
First ability is up 1, put a loyalty counter on Huatley Radiant Champion for each creature you control.
All right.
Cool. So if you're tokening, you can just beef her up real quickly. Which then she has an ultimate of -8, which I can see you being in a position you cast her, get to that, and then the next turn you can cash in. You get an emblem with whenever a creature enters the battlefield, and this is not non-token like a lot of cards qualify. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, you may draw a card. She can also beef stuff up with her middle ability.
So she synergizes really well with Selesnya tokens.
She's a really good Selesnya tokens build. But I think to come back to your like question, like Kyle's perspective on tokening, none of what I described is particularly unique.
Mm-hmm.
Where I think any of us can fail when we're building a token deck is not putting together a portfolio that involves enough of these aspects, right?
So diversifying these aspects into your deck.
Yes.
So having a way to cash out,
Mm-hmm.
having some kind of insurance, which is kind of the same thing. But
Sure.
for me, it's if you're in black or red, you probably just want to run these because as soon as you resolve one, you're like, hey, fuck, I can't really lose short of like an exile.
Exactly.
And then yeah, if you have your cash out with that, you can commit insurance fraud and just sack it all off. And oh shit, my house burned down.
Oh, damn.
Lose 27 life or whatever. How many? You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So yeah, there's that. Being able to multiply the tokens you put in, which I think
Mhm.
everybody knows that one.
Yeah,
right?
sure.
Like, so
That's why there's some of the most
Doubling
expensive
effects
cards to get your hands on. Like Doubling Season is $50. Primal Vigor, which benefits everybody, is $20.
yeah,
Like Parallel Lives is $15. Anointed Procession is $15. Like they're
stop.
they're
You're killing
expensive
it. You're
cards.
killing
Reese
me.
the Redeemed is like $30 going on $40.
God, stop it. Yeah, so there's those.
Yeah.
Right. And then what else did we talk about? Oh, just the kind of like get you going.
Yeah,
things,
just
which
the-
are pretty cheap.
Yeah, exactly.
The get you going tokens are pretty cheap.
But I think you can like overdo it with that aspect, right? You can have your deck full of those kinds of spells
Yeah, I think most people fall in get you going and
multiplying.
multiplying. They don't really think about putting them to work with stuff like the Skull Clamp. I mean, depending on what tokens you're
Sure.
looking at. In
Sure.
a zombie deck, it's a little harder. Yeah, investing in a way to like cash it out if somebody's trying to gain control of them all, or you're going to face some kind of board wipe, or got a Rakdos Charm.
Oh yeah.
You know, like something like that.
Or God forbid, like a Massacre Worm hit the battlefield, you know? Like,
Yeah, we forgot. Yeah. Massacre Worm is that's like an economic downturn.
yeah, it is.
Like, oh God.
It is. Like, it is the Great Depression to a token deck.
And once it's out, it's pretty bad. Like all of your other effects, like your sack effects and things like that, are now
yeah, they're sort of neutered.
they're on notice. He's there.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
he's got to get removed. But yeah, I just kind of thinking about tokens, like what I've seen.
Yeah, most people fit into those first two
The first
pieces.
two.
Let's get going, let's multiply, which by implication means that you're going to be relying on combat damage. And that's a tall order. It's high risk. because
Propaganda and Ghostly Prison are the first thing people think of when they're like, oh yeah, I gotta answer aggro.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of people, they just slap that pillow fort down. So now it's just not cost effective to attack anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So there's a lot of things that can stand in the way of that kind of stuff. And so putting yourself in a position where you can capitalize. And I think the multiplier thing it's alluring.
It's amazing.
right?
It's good. You need it. You do need it.
Well, and I think it's hypnotizing is the other thing. I was hypnotized by it with my Reese deck. Like those moments of being able to get a Seedborn Muse with Reese out are like,
Yeah, I
I'm
mean,
just-
your eyes are rolling in the back of your head just even describing
yeah,
it.
I'm like, I don't even know what to do with myself. That's so awesome.
Yeah.
But you still got to get around to combat.
Do you need me to leave the room so you can have a
yeah,
platonic
I'm going to have a
moment with your-
platonic moment with myself.
with your body? Because I'll just be right outside. You're not going to actually like jerk off.
I got to be like really quiet.
Just think about it.
Mm,
Just think about doing it.
yeah.
Okay.
So those aspects I think are really important. Here's the other thing to me about this, Andy, is what's the color combination you most commonly think of when we say tokens?
Selesnya.
Selesnya. Even
But
though we've
now that we've
identified they
kind of-
exist in all the colors.
Yeah, now that we've kind of gone down the tube a little, like it's actually not that. It's kind of weak. It only lies on the first two
it actually is.
tenets of tokens.
Yeah, it doesn't provide you a lot of things that
We're really bad at branding things. I was thinking like we should have we kind of just fell into a good structure, it feels like, but you know, like we kind of identify it. We discovered it.
sure.
Because honestly, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about when we started this podcast, but now that we're talking, I'm kind of seeing it a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, Selesnya, now that we've aired it out, it
And so-
relies on combat.
So the game design really pushes tokening on Selesnya, but it's probably one of the weaker places to actually try and take advantage of tokens.
Yeah, I mean, it has access to Ashnod's Altar, and then I guess like Altar of Dementia as a way to just, oh shit, I'm cashing out.
Yeah,
I guess.
you can use those artifacts.
It
The other thing
has
you can do is you can use something like
Cryptolith
Cryptolith Rite.
to add, Is that a cash out? That's more of a
But you still
diversifying
somebody
what
can
they do. It's putting them to work.
Yeah,
It's putting the
somebody
money
can
to work.
cut you off with that too, because are you going to run concordant crossroads in order to get
Get it off at instant
it off
speed.
at instant speed? Like you're providing that to everybody else.
Probably not in a Selesnya deck.
Yeah, it might be a bad idea.
I don't know about that.
Like, do I really want to give the guy that's playing red across the board?
If we're thinking
access to that?
Tristani, a lot of the time you're not really looking to do. Not a lot of the time. Never are you looking to populate or do her ability on a 1/1. So the Soul
Sure.
Clamp is not that attractive.
Sure.
Yeah, outside of that, I don't know. I was thinking greater good for her. That's probably the best cash out,
Sure.
maybe,
I can see that.
depending on our altitude of our go tall. So, you're reaffirming my belief that Selesnya sucks.
It's yeah, I'm with you.
It fucking sucks, dude.
I mean, it is very good at producing tokens. It has some really good avenues for doing that.
But it's missing those other things that
But it's missing
we're
these
looking
other
for.
things that we want.
But then you've got Guru Spore comes along, dude, and
Yeah, so let's add
holy
black.
shit, things
and it
just
gets crazy.
get fucking insane when you add black. Things just actually spiral out of
Yeah, they get out of control.
The deck builds itself.
Pretty
So
much.
he really is looking for every one of those things. It gets to the point where it's like, all right, well, I've got my insurance in the Blood Artist,
Mm-hmm.
and I've got my, kind of auto-producing passive income over here with the +1/+1 counters
Yeah.
and the tokens. The fact that that's on the same card is just nuts. So he just kind of just tears that thing apart.
Oh
you
yeah.
know?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they do kind of. I would be interested to see like green sack outlets that do something. Like.
Yeah, like
I
if it
don't know what those
were
could
card
be.
draw or something like that, like or producing some mana for you that I don't know.
There is a white enchant that lets you sacrifice a creature to regenerate another one.
That's a good point.
And from a Krenko perspective, I don't know how to spell I don't know how to pronounce it. I think it's a Cherugian. I call him the Churro.
Oh, the churro surgeon.
Yeah, I call him the Churro Surgeon. But he lets you sacrifice a goblin to regenerate another goblin.
Yeah, that's a really
So
that one's frustrating.
Yeah, he's annoying because sort of like a Wrath of God, like spot removal, things like that. Like people are looking to dump that on a lot of the goblins, specifically the boss.
Right.
And yeah, I just
It's just
do
like,
some
sorry,
churro
I'm-
surgery to
I'm
keep
keeping
him in
him.
play. Yeah. Yeah.
The art on that thing is so stupid, too.
It doesn't matter which one you get to. They're all wild. There's one where he's like sewing the Llanowar elf head onto some tiger man. Like, and he's like got one eye closed. Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty bonkers. So I don't know. I hope some of what we just illuminated, I've got a deck to talk about, but I hope some of what we just talked about can maybe dispel some of our notions about tokens.
Well, what deck are you about to talk about? Is it going to hit all these points?
It's going to be, I don't want to like 100% predict that you're going to be into this, but I'm pretty sure you're going to be into this.
Dude, let's start it. I don't even want to hear. Like, let's go.
But I just before we dive into that, I just want to make sure that I hope people feel like maybe we can dispel some of the notions we have about tokens. There's more that you can do with them than what I think
Then just go wide.
the
and swing.
design is pushing on us a little bit. Like obviously there's kind of like these disparate ways where, oh yeah, I can use Goblin Bombardment or I can use Vindictive Vampire and Blood Artist and things like that to kind of
and Outpost
But-
Siege.
but let's put more focused on those types of things and really make sure we're cashing in with our tokens.
Yeah. So when you build a deck, treat it like it's just some other resource.
Yeah.
Like energy or
Yeah.
or whatever. And it's a vulnerable one. People can see it, and people get freaking triggered when they see how wealthy you've become. For
Sure.
sure. I can say that like I think a deck in our play group that practices this really well is Tiff's Nath of the Guilt Leaf.
Yeah, I would say so.
So originally, and we did a deck tech about this on our Golgari thing, but originally her list was just Elf Tribal with black,
Mhm.
and it's like sure, it becomes less focused than an Azuri deck. I guess it's less cheese than an Azuri deck because Azuri's really just looking to kind of abuse some untap and
You have access to a few cool black tools, right?
and ball off. I guess is what Azuri's looking to do. But yeah, like you were saying, you get access to some of the black stuff. It's always a good color to splash. Right?
Sure.
But it just wasn't working. It's just too slow, you
Right.
know, and it caves to board wipes.
Yeah.
So where we took it instead was, the tokens are a currency. It's irrelevant that they're
Yeah. If they
an elf.
connect, cool. That's your fault for not dealing with them. But
yeah. So
I'm-
she turns it into, something to answer her own edict effects with.
Mhm.
Like she uses like the Magus of the Abyss, things like that.
Yeah. one of the cards that I'm most scared to see with that deck is the Sadistic Hypnotist.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Yeah. Like it just eats everyone's hand and she sets
Yeah, she's totally awesome.
Yeah, she's fine. That's the object of the deck. And then start loading stacks effects in. So
Yeah.
when Smokestacks gets up and going, like she would put more soot counters on it than she can handle it.
Yeah,
Like,
she's fine.
she can start throwing away all these Eldrazi tokens she's making. She even has like the weird squirrel enchant that makes a squirrel. Like she just wants tokens to feed the sheer volume of edict effects that she's thrown in here and discard uses like Mind Slash and all that stuff. So I think it lives that. It even has Cryptolith right in it too. So
yeah, it does.
I think it fits it's a diversified portfolio.
I would say so. And I think that's the point. Like because I think a lot of times she got put in a position in the previous build where she would have unfavorable combat, but so many tokens that it was apparent she wasn't going to keep her board state.
Yeah.
If anybody came into a board wipe, they were going to cast it.
Yeah, they're going to do it. And we still do because we know what she's going to do with them.
Sure. But now she has a way to cash in more frequently.
But there's so many cards she's just completely circumvented, like Propaganda. She doesn't really give a fuck about that.
Yeah, whatever.
Ghostly Prison and Severe Safety. She's like, I'm not really coming over there anyway.
Yeah,
like, she
fine.
has
I'll get
created
at you somewhere
if
else.
it happens, but she's going to get you somewhere else.
Yeah.
You'll get eaten from a painful quandary before she comes
So
over there with her.
I think it's
elves.
important to say, like, it's not to, the point isn't to avoid combat with your tokens. My point is you can be doing stuff when you can get benefit from casting them. You can get benefit from combat. You can get benefit from them
Or
dying.
having them even.
Yeah, like let's make sure that we're putting our money to work, our currency to work, which is our tokens, right? So when I started kind of prepping for this, I got really interested in the idea initially of using Cedar Kondo of the Jamura, and just keeping low to the ground tokens and just trying to be proliferate with them and having some kind of way to make sure they get through with combat. But then I started really hashing out this idea of, am I really capitalizing on them as an asset?
Mm-hmm.
And so I initially was kind of going to do a Naya build with Cedar Kondo and Tana,
Okay, that makes sense.
the
'cause she
Bloodsower, because she
meets
produces
his-
tokens.
Yeah,
right?
and she meets his evasion requirement.
Yeah, exactly. And so I was kind of like, I was really trying to do that. And I'll talk about that afterwards. It's not the direction I ended up going. But in order to really fully capitalize on a lot of those cash-ins, like we talked about,
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I want this to be Jund, but I'm going to stick with the partners.
Okay.
And so I'm going to keep Tana,
Okay.
and then I'm going to throw Vial Smasher in here.
Okay. A bit of blood has rushed into my penis.
This is getting really weird. This is going to be really weird, right?
Just a bit.
So remember, like, the objective here is, if combat happens with my tokens, that's cool. But the biggest thing that I want is I want some benefit from casting my token spells or things that produce tokens for me. And I want benefit from my tokens dying.
Where does Vial come in?
Just you see.
All right, you better have something for him to work with, because don't waste Vial Smasher.
So let me preface this with, there's a good amount of ramp in the deck to make sure that I'm prepared to cast some larger spells.
Okay.
Okay.
Sure.
So Tana's going to set up our tokens early. Hopefully we can ramp her into a turn 3 play. Ideally, that's the type of opening hand we should have, and she may not get through. And if we get some tokens from her, cool. But she's not like the
She's
biggest.
a good investment vehicle.
Yeah, she's not the biggest deal of what we're doing. Like,
Okay.
the important thing is that we really want to ramp, and we want to get Vial Smasher out so we can drop some some token type stuff. Now, it's just going to go, let's just go without saying. I've put the multipliers in the deck that apply in the colors. So Parallel Lives, Doubling Season, Primal Vigor, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, they're there.
It's all here.
Okay.
Okay, so we know that. That's out of the way. Let's talk about how I'm creating tokens, Andy.
Outside of Tana.
Outside of Tana,
Okay.
we're just going big. So Avenger of Zendikar is in here. That sounds pretty natural. It's going to go with Tana pretty easily. But it's 7 mana and goes right along with Vial Smasher, right?
True. So you trigger a random 7 from Vial Smasher, and then, yeah, you're going to get some tokens for every land you control.
So, yeah.
So 7 if you haven't advanced anymore.
Exactly. So 7. Let's go with this one's really greedy.
Okay.
So the Desolation Twin.
Is it 10?
It's 10
For 2 10/10s.
for 2 10/10s.
So you deal 10 damage with the smash,
Yeah.
then you get a 10/10.
Then we get a 10
Then you get another 10/10.
and then a token that's a 10
So it's 30 damage, 10 of which is assigned to whoever.
Yeah, assigned to whoever.
Yeah.
So we're going to cast the Dragon Lair Spider. So this is 6 mana,
Mm-hmm.
and we're going to get tokens whenever anybody casts a spell thereafter.
Okay.
Since we're taking advantage of some of these bigger spells, I thought, fuck it, we're just throwing Endrick Sar in here. So let's set up an Endrick Sar, and then say we have one of these ones I just talked about. Like, let's say we cast the Desolation Twin. Okay, so I get my 10/10 token from that in addition to its 10/10.
So okay, let me walk.
And then I get 10
Yeah. Okay. So
Black Thralls.
10 rando damage if Vial's out.
Uh-huh.
10/10 Desolator, and then it's 10/10 Twin, and then 10 Thralls.
10 Thralls. And unfortunately,
And then Edric goes.
Endrick dies in that process, but fuck it. I just got a lot of tokens out of it,
Yeah.
right? Giant Ataphage. This is one that I used in my first Reese build, and I really liked it.
Well, because it's got trample. Mercifully, it has
It
trample.
mercifully has trample. So it's 5 and 2 green for a 7/7. When Giant Ataphage deals combat damage to a player, put a token onto the battlefield that's a copy of Giant Ataphage.
God.
Hornet Queen. 4 and 3 green. So
7 again.
7 again with
God
Vial
damn,
Smasher.
we're up here in the mana cost.
So when it enters the battlefield, put 4 1/1 green insect creature tokens with flying on the battlefield. It has Death Touch.
Grave Titan.
What's that?
Grave Titan.
I didn't put the Grave Titan in, but that would fit well into this build. The Michaeloth. The Michaeloth is a really great card to put in with. I mean, you'll see her as one of the top cards for Tana, and it just fits in really well with a lot of.
Is it the Devour one that makes them, or?
Yeah, so the Michaeloth, it's 3 and 2 green. It has Devour 2.
Okay.
So if you're not familiar with the Devour mechanic, it says as this creature enters the battlefield, you may sacrifice any number of creatures, and then this creature enters the battlefield with twice that many +1/+1 counters on it. So you get a big giant Michaeloth. It's a 4/4 already, but let's say, I don't know, we've got 4 Saprolings or 4 just small tokens.
Mm-hmm.
We sack those off. We get 8 +1/+1 counters on the Michaeloth.
So
And
he's pretty
then-
sizable.
And then it says at the beginning of your upkeep, create a 1/1 green Saproling creature token for each +1/+1 counter on the Michaeloth.
So you've gone from 4 to 8.
Yeah.
9.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
mean, it
it's just-
takes a turn around the table,
Yeah,
but if nobody deals with it, you're going to be coming out of this way, way ahead.
Yeah,
Right.
this is definitely one of those like on turn cards for sure.
Yeah.
You know.
Mere Battlesphere. Doing a similar thing with the Hornet Queen, but now the Mere Battlesphere can be a vessel of damage itself as well. I put in the Polyraptor, dude, because I fucking like that card.
It's
So
the grim patron of Magic the Gathering.
6 and 2 green. So it has Enrage. Whenever the Polyraptor is dealt damage, create a token that's a copy of Polyraptor.
But if that token takes damage,
It will also create another token.
yeah.
It's the same thing, right? So Polyraptor's like it's like a disease. It'll
Like
just keep-
flubber.
Yeah, exactly. It really is. I put in the Rampaging Baloths. So 4 and 2 green has landfall. You get a 4/4. Tenderfoot Dryad and the Verdant Force kind of functionally have similar things. So both of them say at the beginning of each upkeep, create a 1/1 green sapling creature token.
What's the CMC for the tender shoot?
So the tender shoot is 5.
And what's the?
It has a city's or a ascend. So if you have the city's blessing, saplings you control get +2/+2 as
So
long.
they're 3/3s.
So they're 3/3. So you'll have large saplings coming from the tender shoot dryad.
Mm-hmm.
Verdant Force is 8 mana, so it fits a little more in line with the Vial Smasher in terms of getting damage put in.
Okay.
I also tossed in a few spells. Now, one of them I put in here, and you've heard me criticize this spell because it just doesn't work in the context of what we were dogging on in terms of token strategy, and it's Army of the Damned. If you're just planning on going for combat damage, Army of the Damned
Is terrible.
never fucking works. It just doesn't. It's 13 zombie tokens
That come in tap.
that come in tapped. And so it leaves 2 options open to people. If they have a board wipe, they're going to cast it. If not, your ass is still probably open because the majority of your battlefield is tapped.
Yeah, they'll start dogpiling you.
And so they'll come at you because nobody wants to see 13 2/2 zombies coming at them.
How do I contextualize this card? Because I feel like it might be a go-to for a lot of decks. I'm trying to think of a card where I think what if I'm giving the card charity, okay?
Okay.
It's a card that forces a response from your play group.
It's true. It does.
But I would argue that it leaves you very vulnerable at the same time of doing that.
Yeah.
So like you could say the same thing about a Paradox Engine.
Sure.
You know, a Paradox Engine, when it comes out, it's
focus.
in the deck for a reason,
Yeah.
and it definitely forces a response from the table, right? So your table's got to go, okay, well, who's got the Croson grip,
Sure.
or who's looking to remove it? But it doesn't leave you vulnerable because its mana threshold is significantly lower,
Yeah.
and you have a way to put it to use the turn you cast it. So if you use only artifacts to cast it, well, we're in business.
Yeah.
Then cast your cantrip or do whatever, and you're off to the races. Here we go. This card, though, while it does elicit a similar response, who's got the board wipe? You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
Croson grip, Paradox Engine wants the Croson grip or Return to Dust or something. This Army of the Damned wants a board wipe or dogpile, like everyone just attack him. You know? Attack or attack whoever. It just, I don't know. Am I making sense what I'm trying to say? Like they have the same oh shit reaction,
Well, let me
different.
let me characterize it. I think Army of the Damned is more of a direct threat.
Yeah.
In that I know how much damage you now have available to you. I'm looking at you have 26 combat damage available to you.
Yeah.
If you play a Paradox Engine, it's theoretical. I
True.
don't know what you're going to do. I know it's bad, but I don't know if you have the pieces yet. If you're smart, you probably have them because you shouldn't be playing it yet.
Sure.
But yeah, I think Army of the Damned is a very direct, calculable threat. People can see what it is. In comparison.
And Cyclonic Rift exists. Well, you can flash it back. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah. But let's
if they didn't come in tapped, I probably wouldn't be saying all this. Like
sure.
that is the difference. Like a Zendikar, Avenger of Zendikar, like you have blockers at the least. Like so they board wipe and you've got some kind of
and that's exactly it because
menial defense.
There's only one answer to that. It's a board wipe.
Yeah.
But with Army of the Damned, there's 2. I can attack you or I can board wipe you. But if we put that with Vial Smasher, I'm getting a payout no matter what. If I cast
Are you saying this is in your deck?
it is in the deck. I put it in. Because let's look at let me move into the other side of this coin.
Okay.
Because
I mean, you can flash it back.
and the flashback would be at 10.
It's 2 giant random burn spells at its worst.
Yes, at its worst.
I don't know. I have a Vial Smasher deck and I don't have it. I still don't run it.
Sure, but you're probably not running these other things that I want to do the other side of the coin. Because, okay, so I've put in all of these like big, huge spells to get tokens, right?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Vial Smasher is going to get off on that. But if we put this in context with the fact that I have included these things that we've talked about, Perforos is here. So if I have Vial Smasher, Perforos, and I cast an Army of the Damned, the game's probably over.
Yeah, agreed.
Right? Because
We don't say that a lot, but that's too much. It's over for somebody, for sure.
somebody's taking 8 damage
Yeah.
from Vial Smasher, and then everybody is taking 26,
Yeah.
right? Like that's if you're not dead,
This late, somebody's leaving.
yeah, if you're not dead, you're darn close. So then if of course like Impact Tremors is here as well. Warstorm Surge, stuff like that. I put in Pandemonium because I'm curious if I
I mean, you don't really have like a Cranko-esque. Like, I hesitate to put Pandemonium in a Cranko deck because the mileage I get out of just safely having. I really want you guys to figure out a way to kill Cranko. I don't want to give you a way to do it.
Right.
Because it does target creature.
Exactly.
Is the issue. If it
Exactly.
did all players,
I'd be like, fine, point it at me because I will give more to you.
Yeah. If
you're
it only
right.
did players lose life, I'd be like, here we go. You know, I'm going to capitalize on this way quicker than you will.
So
But,
I'm running these sides, these things, so that I'm not only getting the Vial Smasher like cast
On cast trigger. Sure.
I'm also getting the ETB triggers from all these red enchantments, right?
Yeah, it's a lot of damage you've come up with.
And then I've put the back end into all of this. So that Army of the Damned, let's say I don't have a Perforos, but I do have a Poison Tip Archer out.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, like
Board wipe and lose 13 then.
board wipe is going to hurt.
Yeah.
Like it's coming at you for sure. Vindictive Vampire, which is all, it's going to hit everybody. Zulaport Cutthroat hits everybody. Blood Artist is, I'm picking a player, but even still, I've
The
got
life gain causes a swing.
got enough that's going to be problematic. I put Goblin Bombardment in here, so I have that insurance
Vicious
policy.
Shadows.
Vicious Shadows as well.
Yeah.
Like all of that stuff is here to just make sure that like no matter what I do, you're going to take damage from Vial Smasher.
Or you're going to eat a combat from
And-
all these zombies.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's
At the minimum. And
I
then,
want to make
if
it
any of this
so-
other stuff is present, it's like, dear God.
Oh yeah.
All right.
So hopefully that illustrates what we're talking about. Like I wanted this deck to bring those principles together.
Well, weirdly, I think that the Army of the Damned card actually coalesces this very well. Because if we use what I said about it, saying it leaves you really open, it's a
Mhm.
lot of, like your mana is usually all down,
Mm-hmm.
and you have a bunch of tapped creatures, and now you've really just kind of focused the whole table. Like all of these things just don't add up to casting this spell.
Sure.
But when we put it into the, we take that spoke and put it into the wheel of what you've got going on in this deck. Well, there we go. Like this is a very hyperbolic way of saying, okay, this is how you're really just squeezing the value out of a token strategy.
Exactly. And that is the intention, is that like if combat happens with the tokens that I'm running here, that's awesome.
Great.
That's
Sure.
awesome.
You're going to move on and do more stuff.
But I'm concerned about all of the strange damage because this does two things for me, or in that like I'm milking them for as much as I can, but it also makes it so it's really hard for people to get in the way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Let's talk about a couple other things that have done, because I am running the mana curve on this deck is high. As you can see, because I'm trying to make Vial Smasher a reasonable partner in this command zone, right?
Mhm.
Like something that I'm probably actually more likely to use than Tana. I would say Tana, if I have the circumstances where I feel like I'm going to be able to get her in and get a few tokens off of her, I'm going to cast her.
Well, let me ask you something. How committed to combat are you with this? Like, is there a Goblin War Drums in this deck? Is there any of that kind of stuff going on?
Yeah. So let's talk maybe some revisions really quickly. One, I haven't put a lot of stuff in there to aid Tana in getting through, right? Or to make her bigger, because I think another route you could go is you could swap out Vial Smasher and toss in Rayhan and put in like a +1/+1 counter theme, and kind of
There's overlap there.
use her as an engine to get you a lot more, like you focus more on Tana to get you a lot of
CMC
tokens.
would have to come down then.
The CMC would have to come
A
down.
lot.
It would have to
Yeah.
come down a lot, but it would also put you in a position where you can probably capitalize a lot more. You're going to have more tokens that will be created out of these transactions rather than depending on Vial Smasher for the damage. We're going to be really putting it on things like Perforos, Impact Tremors, and then the death triggers off of Poison, Tip Archer, and others. So I think there is a way to pivot to where you're focused more on making combat happen specifically for Tana. I've kind of like tried to push it into let's use Vial Smasher and not care so much about combat.
Yeah. Or you can play it safe and do Ikra,
Yes,
because you gain life.
you're going to get life off of that as well. So yeah, I think there's an option there. Again, to kind of let's sort of mitigate a little bit of the CMC of the build that I've got put together.
Mhm.
Of course, I think it's important to highlight that Cryptolith Rite is present here. So some of those smaller tokens that we can maybe get set up earlier.
Astronaut's Altar too, I bet.
Yeah. But I've also put in Rada, the Grand Warlord.
Oh, whoa. Yeah.
And so, or Grand Warlord Rada.
Mhm.
So 2 red and a green. She has haste, and then whenever one or more creatures you control attacks, add that much mana in any combination of red and or green. And until your end of turn, you don't lose this mana as steps and phases end.
Mhm.
So this puts you in a position where,
To snatch up some mana really quick.
yeah. So if you're not quite across that threshold to cast the Desolation Twin, well, go to combat with what you have,
Mhm.
get yourself up over that threshold, and then drop that Desolation Twin to get your Vial Smasher trigger. And so we're trying to like cheat that a little bit, not just by ramping, but by putting ourselves in a position.
Well, yeah, and having these effects come online before is obvious.
Yeah, exactly.
Just got to be careful with Smasher's trigger, I guess.
Yeah, because you need it to be the first spell you
Yeah, you
cast.
shut it off.
Right?
Yeah.
Like you don't want to shut it off by trying to do some setup early in the turn.
I just wouldn't marry myself to it. I guess from playing Smasher for as long as I have, like there are, you find yourself like going, oh, I need to do something big really quick. I don't want to waste the trigger.
Yeah.
Just cast the spells. Like just,
Yeah, like sometimes you sacrifice the right advancement for
a big rando.
yeah.
I think just play on curve.
Yeah.
And Smasher will do the work one way or the other.
Oh yeah.
You know, when you start arriving at the end of the road, then you're like, well, I'm doing bigger throws.
And
you
I
know.
would say with the way this deck is structured, Vial Smasher is not going to do all the work for you. Vial Smasher is supplemental to the work, right? Like everything else in concert with each other should push everybody out the door pretty quickly. Along with Grand Warlord Rada, I think a more effective version of this would be Xenagos the Reveler. So 2 a red and a green for the Planeswalker. Add X mana in any combination of red or green to your mana pool where X is the number of creatures you control. So you don't have to push them into the red line like you do with the Grand Warlord. You just up this ability and you
Right.
get it.
And they're
Right.
out there to block for him.
Yeah, and they're out there to be in front of things for you. Some of his other stuff might be of interest, you know, like he can put out
A satyr.
a satyr for you. But really the thing I'm in,
that ability.
yeah, to me, the thing I'm interested in is the mana ability here. And then like some of the other pieces that we talked about, the card draw and stuff like that, so that we can dig deeper into the deck. We cast these things and then let's just go ahead and try and make more happen. But hopefully that makes sense as like trying to encapsulate those pieces. We don't just want to play tokens just to get in and get into combat. We want to fuck people up at every phase of the game.
Truly a Jund deck.
Yeah,
Truly a Jund deck
like
for
it
the
is-
21st century.
This is the Wolf of Wall Street here. Like we're we're fucking like going at it, you know?
We really probably should stop using this finance analogy because we don't know what the fuck we're talking about.
Right? We really don't.
We're just throwing out buzzwords that other guys use, and they might not even be right. They're probably not right.
No, they're not. But the core principle, I think, is true in that, like, it's a currency that you want to leverage.
Sure.
Tokens are.
Sure.
That's what we're trying to get at.
I like the flexibility with this deck though. Like as I'm thinking about it, you probably with just some extra cards. I don't know how you do this, like how into managing it you are. Like you
Sure.
can do the Vial Smasher combo. And let's say one day you're like, let me take Vial out and put in, Rayhan and add some +1/+1 counter stuff. I really like the Ikra idea of like, I'm just going to grab life and I'm going to be sideways so much. I'm just trying to cancel out. Like, you better have more damage than I do because I'm just going to try to cancel it out.
Oh,
with
yeah.
that weird life gain, They have to connect, though, I guess, is the problem. Or you could do Sequoir.
You could do Sequoir. Sequoir, I think, has a weakness to it.
He doesn't trigger off tokens.
Right.
Yeah, that's a huge one, too, but
I think you could build this principle into a Sequoir deck. I think the backbone that I've built here, you could put Sequoir in front of it, and there are a decent number of creatures in the deck, like actual creatures, and so you would get your Sequoir triggers.
Yeah, they count. Sequoir is. He just didn't need to be 5 mana. I think he could have got away with
you're right
being
with
4.
with that caveat of it, non-creature tokens dying. Or non-token creatures dying.
Yeah.
Like I said, I think you can also go the Naya route if you want to keep in the partner realm where we introduce Cedar Kondo, and I think
that's probably like go wide.
Yeah. So then you can introduce some of that Selesnya type
you don't
stuff.
really want them going above 2.
Exactly, because you're keeping them low to the ground, and you can introduce some of those Selesnya things into the deck. You could put Reese the Redeemed in the 90 and 9. Another option, if we're sticking with Jund, that I actually did play around with was the concept of keeping Tana and Vial Smasher, and doing like a secret commander with Slimefoot and having it be Saproling oriented.
Because she makes Saprolings.
She does make Saprolings, and so she can contribute to that setup, and you can keep all this stuff in, like the Poison Tip Archer and all these other things.
But just
like,
make sure all your effects are centered around.
And then you get some tutors that will allow you to kind of set up the Saproling thing around Slimefoot, because Slimefoot's going to be really effective if you're doing that. But
yeah, and there's always those, what are they, the fungal guys that you get counters and then you can make.
Yeah,
I don't know. For Smasher being around, I probably wouldn't.
It wouldn't, like, Smasher wouldn't
else.
give you as much benefit in that case. So you really could be flexible with who you choose as your other partner. But getting you into those colors,
that might work better with Rayhan now.
It might work well with Rayhan
because there's a lot of counter. I mean, they're spore counters and not +1/+1 counters, but any kind of proliferating or whatever. But yeah. There's a.
I'm just saying, like, I don't think we give, when we think Jund, obviously we're thinking of Prosh.
Mm-hmm.
And that one is pushing combat around tokens, right? Like, it's, Prosh wants to eat them, but it wants to get into combat. And the thing is that, like, you can really do, these are the ideal colors for making all the strange damage happen.
Well, he wins off Perforos. He wins off of Goblin Bombardment. Like, he does. Yeah,
he does do that.
He exemplifies the use of tokens for sure.
So you can do that. I just think that there's other options, like piecing together these partners, or like you said, Sequoir. I think this is really like the place where tokens can live.
Because if you sit down with a Prosh deck, like, everybody knows the guy's played out. We've done our time. Everybody everywhere has done their time with Prosh.
They have.
So even the guy who's playing it, it's like, I've had this deck for years. And sure, maybe you still like it, but
sure,
you get the reaction. Like, unless you're at a competitive pod,
right?
Then you get the, all right, well, we better lock this up pretty quick before he pops off. But if you sit down with Smasher and
Tana,
nobody's
going to be the wiser, but you're going to do the same things.
Like, what the hell? What are you doing?
Yeah, there's only 14 decks with these partner pairings on EDH Rec, and there's certainly not. There's not evidence.
That's when you know you're either onto something or you fucked it up.
That's a good point.
Either we're onto something or we have no fucking.
I feel vindicated because I did the Tashar thing, and there's not hardly any Tashar decks, and Tashar fucking works.
Yeah, that one's annoying. That's an annoying deck.
Yeah,
it's a I win ?
Right.
Yeah.
Anyway,
you gonna do this? You gonna do this deck, Dan?
I have a lot of decks that are using tokens in some way, shape, or form right now. What I envision probably will happen is those will kind of run their course a little bit, and I'll probably pull them out of the roster, and this will manifest from the ashes. Is what I anticipate will happen. I don't want to do this right now because I'm stuffing tokens down everybody's throats right now, and they're probably prepared to be sick of it.
I think we're not. It's not that we're sick of it. It's just that you know that we're going to just start answering it.
Yeah, exactly.
Like more easily. Like I put a ratchet bomb in Glissa to answer it. I'm like, I gotta stop this.
Gotta deal with
It's not
this
just
shit.
you. Like it's
I'm not the only
it's
one.
fucking Nath.
Yeah,
You know, Nath is
nasty.
annoying, and Tiff plays it every week. Yeah. Huh. All right, man. That was a informative seminar.
Dude, get creative with tokens, man. Like I just think there's so much more you can do with them than just having them. You know?
Well, I like that you can be creative with them. I feel like there's other themes out there that, I mean, artifacts you can be pretty creative with, but
Sure.
if you get too cheeky, it's like, God, the mana ask is
Oh yeah.
pretty high up here, you know. +1/+1 counters. I don't know if there's a lot of
There's not a lot of leeway.
Creative
You just need to
sunlight
find your
over there.
combos and go.
and I'm just kind of like thinking, enchants is pretty bad. Enchants is like
Yeah, you're gonna see the same
it's
things.
enchantresses, and what are
Yeah.
you doing? You know, what are you doing without them? I don't know.
Yeah.
I just wanted to be creative.
Yeah, I had to go to 4 colors to make my
I
enchantresses.
don't run
interesting
enchantresses.
to
I
me.
just want to be creative. I just
Like, what are you doing not running them if you're running enchants, right? Like, why would you turn down that card draw?
Yeah.
It's just, you're right. I would say one thing as we part, because I think obviously I've laid out a very bizarro commander pairing. But I think if you're wanting to do tokens and you're selecting a commander, the things to be careful about are you want to make sure that it does one, if not two of those things that we described, in that it creates tokens, it multiplies tokens, it diversifies them in some way, or allows you to
don't you
cash
just
out.
create and multiply, like, you know,
Yeah, so like
as much
Reese,
as the Bible wants you to do that. Like,
yeah, Reese creates and multiplies. Omnath creates and cashes in.
yeah, evolve that.
Yeah, like to just extrapolate that some way. Like your commander just needs to be a contributor to that in some way, shape, or form.
Sick, dude.
Sick.
Question.
Okay.
Our mystery guest, where are we at with that? Is that happening or?
Oh, so he recently moved,
Okay.
has been trying to get internet set up. And when I checked on Sunday, did not yet have it set up. We're going to check in probably tomorrow.
So maybe next time.
Maybe
if not
next
the time
time.
after that.
Maybe next time, but I don't want to commit
I'm
to that
so
right now.
excited though. I want it. I want it. Yeah.
Me too. I'm pretty amped for it.
All right.
Hey everyone, thanks for joining me and Andy for the Legendary Creature podcast. And hopefully this episode made some sense as Andy and I tried to navigate through some analogies that were a little weird for talking about tokens. And hopefully it's helpful for you as you try to build around tokens. I will post a link to my deck list in the show notes so you can go explore that and maybe give us some thoughts on things that you would do as well. Music this episode is by the artist Silver Richards. We'll post a link to their music as well as the music of other artists who let us use their tunes in our podcast as well. Be sure to support them because we're really grateful to just have some dope beats to play each episode. You can follow us on Twitter at legend_creature. Also, be sure to check us out on YouTube. You can find the podcast there, but you can also find gameplay videos that we put out every few weeks. And until next time, take it easy.